Hello, welcome to U.S. History A, Unit 4, and this is the unit about the Civil War. Um, I kind of need to approach this one a little bit differently because the Civil War is messy, very, very, very messy. And okay, let me back up. When me and my husband were dating, we watched the documentary on the Civil War, which was so incredibly cool. And and anyway, so that was our dating life, I guess, which was cool. And then I took a class on the Civil War, and as part of the class, at the end of the class, we went on a trip to the East Coast. And the trip was bananas, completely bananas, because we saw so much and we flew so many places. And like there were times when it was like, okay, grab your lunch and run down, run to this, and we will get on a boat and we will go, in West Virginia, and we will go talk about talk about John Brown or whatever. And anyway, it was seriously a trip. It was a to die for trip for a U.S. history teacher because we had a lot of historians with us on the trip, and they gave us a lot of really cool information. And we're talking like the historians who were the people who knew the most about some situations. So it was very, very cool. Okay, so we're gonna start off with Fort Sumter. And I actually went to Fort Sumter later, because it's way down south, way far away from the other the other Civil War sites. So we actually went there on a trip with my in-laws and saw Fort Sumter, and I was really surprised with how huge most of the most of the places were that the wars took place, but I was really surprised with how small Fort Sumter is. It's not very big at all. So, A Nation Divided is going to take you through the resources, the military leaders, stuff like that. You're going to learn about the medical facilities. You were much more likely to die if you went to the hospitals than you were on the battlefield. That's how bad it was. And the reason was because they didn't really believe in the germ theory of disease, and they didn't really know that like washing your hands did anything for anyone, and they didn't really wash their hands for anything. So that's kind of how that went. And anyway, I so it talks about suffocating the South, and talks about the Battle of Bull Run. I had my students read a book about the Battle of Bull Run, and they were each a person. It was a different kind of book. And they were each a different person in the Battle of Bull Run, and then they'd get together and have kind of a talk as if they were that person. And anyway, it was a lot of fun. And the Battle of Bull Run was one of the first battles, and there were people who went to the Battle of Bull Run thinking that it would just last like an afternoon. And so they brought their lunch to it, just to see the men fight. And it ended up being more than that. Um, and then here's the Emancipation Proclamation, and that kind of shows that Abraham Lincoln was a really, really good he was a really good politician, and he he gave the Emancipation Proclamation right after right after the Battle of Antietam, right after the Union had won a really decisive battle, the Battle of Antietam. And he freed all of the slaves in the states that had left the Union. Okay, not the states that were still in the Union, because there were slaves that were still in the Union, but he freed the slaves that had left the Union. So, kind of an interesting way to look at it. Now, this was kind of this was the beginning of photography in the Civil War, and we were able to see what was called the Lillenquist collection, which is a collection of a bunch of soldiers like this, and they had their picture taken because they didn't know if they would live, and there was the idea of the good death of dying with your family and friends around, and they were afraid that they would die on their own without anyone there. And so they had their picture taken so that their family could remember them before they died, which was really interesting. So let's see. Yeah, once again, prison camps during the war, not the best places to be. Here's, just some pictures of soldiers during the war. Here's Gettysburg, which is one of the places that was a real turning point during the war. It was the place where the northernmost Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So it was the place where the soldiers got the most north, and then they had to turn around and go back south, and that was why it was a turning point. Okay. After Gettysburg, here's a picture that I took of the cemetery there, and that was where the Gettysburg Address was issued. The Gettysburg Address is really interesting because there was a man who spoke for an hour and a half, and apparently it was really extremely boring. And then Abraham Lincoln got up and talked for 20 minutes and gave one of the most famous speeches ever. And it's the Gettysburg Address, which we still recite to this day. So interesting stuff. And then the end of the war was the idea. The Union came up with the idea of the March to the Sea, and so they had what they called the Anaconda Plan, which was that we are just going to take everything and march to the sea. And we are going to split railroads. We are going to burn houses to the ground. We are going to completely annihilate everything there. And my in-laws live in Atlanta, Georgia, and there is nothing in Atlanta, Georgia that was built before like 1864. Okay? Nothing. Because it was all burned to the ground. Okay? The state of Virginia decided to hide their cotton, and the cotton, whatever, went up in flames, and, cotton was just in flames in the air, as everything burned. So it worked, okay? And so then the Civil War comes to an end, everything's coming to an end, and then in his very moment of glory, Abraham Lincoln is shot in Ford's Theater. Okay? And so we really don't know how it would have been if Abraham Lincoln would have been there for Reconstruction. But he is considered one of the United States' greatest presidents, and he certainly did a lot to change the presidency in a big, big, big way, and to make it a lot of what it is today. And so, anyway, if you have any questions about the Civil War, as you can tell, I love to talk about it and I love the Civil War. So, I will stop this right now. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll talk to you later.